Welcome back. I wanted to take one video to just go over a thing that might trip up a lot of people when they're first starting off with React. Remember, React is only a view layer library. Thus, React only enables you to build component-driven user interfaces. And it has some solutions such as its own local state management and a simple way to handle events to make interactions on our website happen. But at the end of the day, it's a simple library that helps with the view. Once you start building large-scale applications, you need to add on top of React. The power of React comes from this ability to tack on new features, new libraries to it, in order to customize it to your own liking, to your own app. So as applications grow, or you start working for a large company, you'll see them use some other tools on top of React. And I wanted to go over quickly some of the ones that are the most common to see out there. We first have React Router, and that is for routing. So changing pages and changing routes in our URL. It's pretty much the standard when it comes to any React and Redux projects. So highly recommended, very easy to use, very easy to learn as well. It'll take you a day and you can pick it up fairly easily. You also have things like utility libraries. And these are libraries that add to the current JavaScript tools that you get out of the box. So think of it as added functions to JavaScript. The most popular are Ramda, if you want to really keep the functional programming ideology, a really good library. And there's also the most popular Lodash, which again gives you extra tools that you can use with JavaScript. You also want to think about styling with React. And again, there's a number of tools that people use for styling. There's Glamorous, which I really like. There's styled components, which again is very nice and quite similar to Glamorous. And then there's things like CSS modules. I'd say these three are probably the best to use if you want to tack on a smarter way to deal with styles in React. And again, these are quite easy to pick up. You can spend a day on them and get the hang of it. Next, we have something called Gatsby.js. And this is really good for static websites in React. So that is simple text-based websites. Actually, if you go to the React documentation, their documentation is actually served with Gatsby.js because, well, they're just simple text-based pages that works really well. Then there's also Next.js, extremely popular for server-side rendered apps. And that's something that we'll talk about when we get to the server-side section. And we'll actually build a simple Next.js app. But very popular, and I highly recommend it if you're building anything server-side. Next, probably what React is known for, and I just picked two options here, but there's so many out there. React is really good because we're able to build reusable components. So if I build a really cool calendar component, I can put it online and other people can just grab that component and use it in their projects as well. So some of the bigger ones are material UI components that, again, you can just use. And there's also the semantic UI library that has a ton of React components that you can use. Again, another awesome reason to use React is these components that people share, and you can just add on to your website. And then finally, there's tools that make Redux better, more efficient. You have things like Reselect that you'll see in most Redux projects that help with something called selectors and improve the performance of your apps. You also have things like Redux Saga, which handles asynchronous actions in Redux. So think of it as Redux Thunk, but supercharged. So as things get more and more complex, you have more and more asynchronous actions, you might want to start looking at things such as Redux Saga. It is a little bit complicated to learn at first, and there's people that love it and hate it, but definitely something that tries to solve the problem of what do we do when we start getting bigger and bigger and bigger apps. And then you also have something like Immutable.js that you can use as a library to make sure that your state remains immutable and enforce that among your developer teams. Now, I don't expect you to know every single one of these and use every single one of these in your projects. As a matter of fact, I want you to caution against them. And every time you add something, ask yourself, do I really need it? What's the benefit that I'm getting out of this? Because adding any library to our project adds extra weight, adds extra JavaScript that we need to deliver to the client. So make sure if you're adding any of these things that you have a justifiable reason that actually improves the value of your product. And it also helps with the development. So when you think of value, don't just think customers and users. Also think of developer teams and people you work with. Are they going to benefit if you add Immutable.js to your code base? Or is the extra learning curve and the frustration that developers might have by using Immutable worth the safeguards that it might add to your project? But anyway, I wanted to emphasize that as a senior developer, always consider pros and cons, whether you need something, and if you do need something, really analyze what is the best tool for the job. I feel like a broken record because I've said this numerous times, but it is a really important concept. So don't just add Immutable.js because you read it in a blog post and everybody's raving about it. Each project is different, so you need to be able to make those decisions for yourself, for your project, for your developer team. All right, enough talking for me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.